Now we want to look a little more at element selection policies, or the section DOM changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the root, create a new module called just simply DOM changes. Inside of DOM changes, I'll create the first one, which is basically Scramble. And I'm not really done with multi-scramble, so we'll see if we get to that. But for now, let's look at Scramble. And I forgot to set the URL again, so I'll set it Scramble. Scramble. As you can see now is that we reload the page, but in this particular case, every time I run this test, it could potentially reload the page, and I don't want to do that because if I change anything here, I want it to still keep the same state of the page. So in this case, it's a good chance to click never reload. And what that does is, even whatever URL you see here, when I click this, it will never reload the page, okay? So that's the key. What this thing is trying to illustrate is how does your element selection policy work. And the way they do it is that I can swap the IDs between these two buttons. I can swap the class. As you can see, the colors are changing. And you can also see here how the class is changing. And I can swap the content between the buttons, okay? And then, of course, I can also swap the order in the DOM tree. Otherwise, I could just say, hey, just click the first button, right? And I just want to show you how the selectors on Boozang are different. So let's say now I'm clicking this Puma button. I'm recording one click. So what you can see in the DOM path is that it says Puma. And again, what I will do is, instead of running the whole test, I'm just going to double click here. First of all, what you can see is that the Puma button right here, you see it's being selected, that it keeps clicking this button, right? So if I would have clicked the tiger button, you see it moves and highlights this. And now I can see clearly that the Puma button is clicked. What if I swap the IDs? Well, you see again the Puma button is clicked, okay? What if I swap the class? Again, the Puma button is clicked. And it's not until I swap the content that it will basically go over to the other button, which has the value Puma. So let's say I want to click a button based on class. For instance, I always want to click the pink button, okay? So I'm just going to update, I'm going to click edit here. And I'm going to open the DOM picker. And instead of saying, I want to look at the default attribute, which is the value Puma, I instead say, no, I want to click the pink button, which is type button, okay? So what I'm doing now is I'm just selecting the dot pink here in the DOM tree and type button. So I'm customizing the path. So what I'm doing now, as you can see, now I'm hitting the pink button or the Puma button. But if I swap the class, I now hit the tiger button. So you see how default Boozang uses the labels of everything. And you can still customize it to use, for instance, the class. Or if I want to do the ID, the same thing that I was doing before. But instead, I can use the big attributes. I'm going to use the big, click the big button. So now I'm clicking the Puma button. But if I swap the ID, I'm still clicking the big button, right? So that's how it is in Boozang. Always use the labels or attributes that are visible to the user and then fall back to ID and class, which makes Boozang really, really robust when it comes to dynamic classes and IDs.